The emergency alarms were still ringing when Ambassador Kethera collapsed at the entrance of the human embassy station. Her usually bright blue skin now looked pale and dim, like a dying star. The beautiful patterns that normally danced across her body were barely visible, flickering weakly like a broken light. Ambassador Jin rushed forward as his security team helped the alien diplomat to her feet. He had never seen a Vellani look so broken. Kethera was known throughout the galaxy for her strength and grace, but now she could barely stand Ambassador Kethera. "What happened?" Jin asked, his voice filled with concern. She looked up at him, with large, tired eyes that seemed to hold the weight of entire worlds. "They're gone," she whispered, her voice cracking. "The colonies of Theta 7, New Velonis, and Bright Shore, 3 billion souls, Jin, all gone in a single day." Jin felt his blood run cold. He had heard the reports, but seeing the devastation reflected in her eyes made it real. The hegemony war machine was moving faster than anyone had predicted. The hegemony ships came out of nowhere, Kethera continued, her hands shaking as she spoke. "Our defense fleets tried to fight back, but they were like children throwing stones at giants. The hegemony didn't even try to capture the colonies. They just destroyed everything." Jin guided her to a chair and brought her some water. The Vellani Confederation had been humanity's first true friends in space. When the deadly Proxima Plague had threatened human colonies, it was Vellani medical ships that had arrived with the cure. "Our High Council sent me here as their last hope," Kethera said, looking directly into Jin's eyes. "We have maybe weeks before they reach our core worlds. Our fleets are scattered, our best ships destroyed. We have nothing left to throw at them." Jin walked to the large window overlooking the starfield. In the distance, he could see the lights of human ships moving through space. They looked so small and peaceful compared to the massive hegemony war fleets. "Why come to us?" Jin asked quietly. "The Altari have bigger fleets. The Zenthi have better weapons." Kethera stood up slowly, her skin flickering brighter for just a moment. "Because when humans make friends, you fight for them like their family. The galaxy knows this about your people." Jin turned back to face her, already knowing what she was going to ask. "Please, Jin, will humanity help us? Will you fight beside us against the hegemony?" The massive doors of the Human Colonial Council chamber slammed shut as Ambassador Jin finished his report. The room fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the holographic displays showing hegemony forces sweeping across Vellani space like a deadly storm. Admiral Na was the first to break the silence, her fist hitting the metal table so hard it echoed through the room. "Are we seriously considering this? We've been in space for barely 50 years. The hegemony has been conquering worlds since before our great-grandparents were born." Her voice carried the frustration of someone who had spent years building humanity's small but growing fleet. They have 4 different alien species working together, thousands of ships, billions of soldiers. What do we have? A few hundred vessels and the naive hope that somehow we can make a difference. Captain Wu stood up slowly from his seat, his weathered face showing the scars of many battles. "Admiral Na makes good points about our numbers," he said calmly, "but she's forgetting something important." The room turned to look at him as he continued. 15 years ago, when the Proxima Plague was killing our people, who came to help us? When our own medical ships couldn't find a cure and our colonies were dying, who risked their lives to save ours? Several council members nodded, remembering those dark days when humanity had almost lost its first major colony. The Vellani didn't ask what they would get in return, Wu continued. They didn't count the cost. They just came and saved millions of human lives because it was the right thing to do. Admiral Han crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair. "Captain Wu, I respect what the Vellani did for us. We all do. But debt doesn't win wars against superior numbers. Gratitude doesn't stop enemy missiles or rebuild destroyed ships." "Then what are you suggesting?" asked Counselor Park from across the room. That we sit here and watch our friends get destroyed. That we abandoned the first species that showed us kindness in this galaxy? The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity needed to focus on protecting its own worlds. Others insisted that helping the Villani was not just morally right, but strategically smart. If the hegemony could destroy the Villani so easily, humanity might be next. Finally, Council Chairman Kim called for silence. We'll vote now. All in favor of military assistance to the Villani Confederation. The electronic voting system counted each decision. When the results appeared on the main screen, the room held its breath. The vote was 127 in favor, 126 against. By a single vote, humanity had chosen war against the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The moment Admiral Na sent out the coded message, something incredible began happening across human space. What looked like peaceful merchant ships suddenly started changing in ways that would shock the galaxy. On the cargo vessel New Sol, Captain Lee watched his crew remove fake wall panels to reveal rows of missile launchers. "I've been waiting 20 years to use these," he muttered, running his hand along the sleek weapons that had been hidden behind fake cargo containers. Thousands of light years away, the mining platform Busan Station was undergoing its own transformation. Workers wheeled out massive stockpiles of ammunition that had been disguised as mining equipment. The platforms or processing facility opened up to reveal a weapons factory that had been secretly operating for decades. "This is incredible," whispered Lieutenant Park as she watched a simple transport ship deploy armor plating from hidden compartments. "How long have we been preparing for this?" Her captain, Commander Yoon, smiled grimly. "Since the day we first met hostile aliens, we decided never to be caught defenseless again. Every human ship built in the last 30 years has a secret. The transformation wasn't just about weapons. Human research stations revealed themselves to be military bases. Communication satellites started broadcasting tactical data. Even passenger ships had hidden areas filled with supplies for extended warfare." Admiral Na stood in the command center of humanity's flagship, watching reports flood in from across human space. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the red communication switch that she had hoped never to use. "Attention all human vessels," she broadcasted across the entire fleet network. "This is Admiral Na. I am now activating Protocol 7. A." Chill ran through every human ship as they heard those words. Protocol 7 was humanity's most closely guarded secret, the total war doctrine that had been developed after their first contact with hostile alien forces. Total war doctrine is now in effect, Na continued, her voice steady, despite the weight of what she was ordering. "All human vessels, prepare for extinction-level engagement. This is not a battle for territory or resources. This is a fight for survival, not just ours, but our friends who trusted us to stand with them." Within hours, what had appeared to be a small collection of peaceful human ships had transformed into a battle fleet that defied all galactic intelligence estimates. The human defense fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edges of Villani territory. Their true strength finally revealed. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered what else might be out there. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, confident that this would be the shortest battle in hegemony history. His fleet of 300 warships faced maybe 60 human vessels. It should have been a quick victory before lunch. "Sir, the human fleet is moving into attack formation," reported his tactical officer, a slight tremor in his voice. Vex barely looked up from his meal. "Let them come. We'll be done with this in an hour." But as the first exchange of weapons fire began, something was clearly wrong. The human ships were taking hits that should have destroyed them instantly, yet they kept fighting. Vexter watched in growing confusion as a human cruiser, with half its hull torn away and fires burning throughout its structure, continued firing its weapons. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the human ship Inchin has lost all its shields and most of its hull, but it's still attacking our destroyer group." Vexstar finally looked up from his tactical display. This was impossible. Any civilized species would have retreated by now to save their remaining ships and crew. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The human destroyer, Mokbo, had taken critical damage. Its hull was breached. Atmosphere was streaming out into space, and several sections were completely dark. But instead of retreating, the ship was accelerating directly toward his escort vessel Dominator. "What are they doing?" Vexstar demanded. His tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, I think they're going to ram us." The Mokpo slammed into the Dominator at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a new sun, destroying both ships instantly. But the human crew had managed to evacuate most of their people in escape pods just seconds before impact. "What kind of species fights like this?" his tactical officer whispered, staring at the burning wreckage. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that should have been retreating were instead making desperate attacks. Some were ramming hegemony vessels. Others were detonating their own reactors when boarded, taking enemy marines with them by the time the battle ended. Vexstar had won, but at a terrible cost. His fleet of 300 ships was now reduced to barely 150. The humans had been destroyed, but they had taken half of his forces with them. As he stared at the debris field filled with the remains of both fleets, Vexstar realized he had learned something terrifying about humanity. They didn't just fight to win, they fought like every battle was their last. Captain Bo pressed her helmet against the metal wall, feeling the vibrations of enemy movement on the other side. Her squad of 20 Marines crouched behind her in the narrow boarding tunnel, their armor suits glowing softly in the toxic green light that filled the hegemony ship's corridors. "Radiation levels are off the charts," Sergeant Kim whispered through the my suit's warning systems won't stop beeping. Bo checked her readings and shook her head. The hegemony built their ships to be deadly to boarders. This level of radiation would cook most alien species in about 3 minutes. She smiled grimly. "Good thing we're not most species." The tunnel shuddered as explosions rocked the ship around them. Through a crack in the wall, Bo could see the swirling purple energy that powered hegemony vessels, energy that was slowly poisoning the air they breathed. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Vexstar watched the security feeds with growing disbelief. The human Marines were moving through areas of his ship that even his own crew couldn't enter without protective equipment. The radiation levels in those corridors would kill any hegemony soldier within minutes. "How are they still alive?" his science officer asked, staring at the readings. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the hegemony ship. The humans had breached the main hull, and atmosphere was rushing out into space. Vexstar expected to see the human Marines retreat, or at least pause to seal the breach. Instead, Captain Bo simply switched her squad to vacuum mode and kept advancing. "Hull breach confirmed," Bo reported calmly to her team. "Switching to sealed environment protocols. Continue the mission." Her Marines moved through the airless corridors like they were taking a walk in the park. What should have been an instant death sentence was just another day at the office for these warriors from Earth. "Admiral." Vexstar watched one of the humans pull off his damaged helmet in the middle of hard vacuum, quickly patch a crack in his suit, and put the helmet back on, all while continuing to fight. The entire process took less than 30 seconds. "This is impossible," Vexstar breathed. "They're fighting in conditions that would kill our best warriors instantly." His tactical officer looked up from his screen, his face pale with fear. "Sir, I don't think they're just ignoring the danger. I think they're using it as a weapon. They're deliberately fighting in areas where we can't follow them." Vexstar finally understood the terrible truth about humanity. They weren't just tough. They had turned their home planet's deadly nature into their greatest advantage. The massive hegemony command ship Eternal Victory shook violently as the human boarding pod slammed into its hull. Admiral Vexstar had seen this happen countless times before. Enemy forces would attempt to board. His elite guards would quickly eliminate them, and the battle would be over. But this time was different. The first sign something was wrong came when his security chief reported that the humans had breached the hull in Sector 7, the most toxic part of the ship where even hegemony crew needed full protective suits. "Sir, they're moving through the chemical processing areas," the security chief stammered. "The atmosphere there would melt the lungs of any normal species in seconds." Vexstar pulled up the security cameras and watched in stunned silence. The human Marines were walking through clouds of acid vapor like it was morning mist. One human soldier had taken a direct hit from a plasma rifle that should have killed him instantly, but he was still fighting with a gaping wound in his chest. "Impossible," Vexstar whispered. "How are they still moving?" Marine Cho stumbled as another blast caught her in the shoulder, spinning her around. Green blood from the hegemony defenders mixed with her own red blood on the deck, creating a toxic mixture that would poison most life forms. She wiped it off her visor and kept advancing. "Lieutenant Essio, I need cover fire," she called out, her voice steady, despite the fact that she was fighting with what should have been fatal injuries. "On it," Sio replied, moving forward while breathing atmosphere that was slowly burning his throat. To him, it was just another day that reminded him of home. Admiral Vexstar watched his elite defenders, warriors, who had conquered dozens of worlds, falling back in terror from these seemingly unstoppable humans. His tactical officer was frantically reading reports from across the ship. "Sir, they're not just resistant to our defenses," the officer reported, his voice shaking. "They're actually performing better in our most dangerous areas. It's like they prefer fighting in conditions that would kill us." Then it hit Vexstar like a lightning bolt. He quickly pulled up the intelligence files on humanity's homeworld, Earth, as he read about the planet's deadly storms, poisonous creatures, extreme temperatures, and natural disasters. The horrible truth became clear. These weren't just warriors from another world. They were survivors from a planet so dangerous that it had turned them into something the galaxy had never seen. Before living weapons forged by evolution itself, for the first time in decades, Admiral Vexstar gave the order his forces had never heard: "All units, fall back." Admiral Na stood before the holographic star map, watching red enemy markers scattered across Vellani space like a deadly infection. But now she was ready to turn the tables. "Operation Breakwater begins now," she announced to her fleet commanders. "We're not going to fight them head-on anymore. We're going to hunt them." Within hours, small human ships appeared throughout hegemony-controlled territory, like ghosts in the night. Captain Kong's destroyer Daegu struck a hegemony supply convoy carrying food and ammunition to the front lines. Before enemy reinforcements could arrive, his ship had vanished back into hyperspace. "Hit them where they can't defend," Na had instructed her captains. "Every supply ship destroyed means their frontline forces go hungry. Every communication relay we take out leaves them blind." Meanwhile, something amazing was happening with the Vellani forces. Human military advisors had begun retraining Vellani soldiers, teaching them tactics that seemed impossible to other species. "You don't have to be stronger than them," Colonel Min explained to a group of Vellani officers. "You just have to be willing to do things they won't." The Vellani learned quickly. On the world of New Vellanis, Commander Thakara led a mixed force of Vellani and human soldiers in a daring night attack. Instead of the traditional head-on assault, they used human stealth tactics, striking supply depots and communication centers before melting back into the darkness. The psychological impact on hegemony forces was devastating. Captain Chen's reconnaissance ship intercepted enemy communications filled with fear and confusion. "They're everywhere and nowhere," one hegemony commander reported to his superiors. "We destroy one human ship, and 3 more appear behind our lines. Our supply convoys are being hunted by ghosts." Back in hegemony space, doubt was spreading like wildfire. The Krex delegation met in emergency session, their leader, General Voth, pacing nervously. "We signed up to conquer weak civilizations," Voth declared angrily, "not to fight creatures that seem to enjoy dying in battle. Our casualty reports are unlike anything in our history." Similar conversations were happening across all 4 hegemony species. The Ultan Council questioned whether this war was worth losing entire fleets. The Zephyrians began calculating the cost of each engagement and realized they were spending more resources than they could ever gain from victory. "Fighting humanity isn't war," one hegemony admiral reported grimly to his superiors. "It's prolonged suicide. They turn every battle into a situation where victory costs us more than defeat." The tide had turned, and everyone in the galaxy could feel it. The emergency meeting on the hegemony homeworld of Krathos was unlike anything in their 1,000-year history. Leaders from all 4 member species sat around a massive table, their faces showing fear instead of the usual arrogance that had defined their empire. "Human fleets have been detected in the Outer Rim," General Voth reported, his voice barely steady. "They're not just hitting our supply lines anymore. They're coming for our home systems." Admiral Vexstar slammed his fist on the table. "How did this happen? 6 months ago, we were discussing which Villani worlds to attack next. Now we're hiding in our own territory like frightened children." The answer came from their intelligence chief, who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "The humans don't fight like any species we've ever encountered. When we destroy one of their ships, they celebrate the fact that it took 3 of ours to do it. When we capture their soldiers, they smile and tell us more are coming." High Chancellor Zikmer, the supreme leader of the hegemony, finally spoke. "Contact the humans. Tell them we want to discuss terms." The meeting took place on a neutral space station. Admiral Na entered the negotiation room with only 2 advisors, facing a delegation of 20 hegemony leaders. Her calm confidence filled the room like a cold wind. "We're prepared to discuss reasonable terms for ending this conflict," Chancellor Zikmer began, trying to sound diplomatic. Admiral Na placed a single data pad on the table. "Here are our terms. Complete withdrawal from all Villani territory. Full reparations for every world you destroyed. Permanent human monitoring stations in your key systems to ensure compliance." The hegemony delegation erupted in angry voices. Admiral Vexstar stood up, his face red with rage. "These terms are too harsh. You're treating us like defeated criminals. We still have the largest fleet in the galaxy." Na's smile was as cold as deep space. "Admiral Vexstar, you chose extermination as a tactic when you thought you were stronger. You killed billions of innocent Villani civilians without offering them any terms for surrender. Now you'll live with the consequences." She leaned forward, her voice quiet but deadly serious. "Your largest fleet is currently running from my smaller one. You can sign these terms, or you can explain to your people why human ships are appearing over your homeworlds." The room fell silent. After 3 hours of desperate discussion, the hegemony signed unconditionally. The age of their empire was over. 6 months after the hegemony's surrender, the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered for what many considered the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Cathara stepped up to the speaking platform, her bioluminescent skin now blazing with brilliant blue and gold patterns that danced across her body like living art. The transformation from the broken, desperate diplomat who had stumbled into the human embassy was remarkable. "Honored members of the council," she began, her voice strong and clear. 6 months ago, my people faced extinction. The hegemony had destroyed our fleets, murdered billions of our citizens, and was preparing to wipe the Villani Confederation from existence. The hall fell silent as she continued. "We came to humanity as beggars, asking for help from a species that had been part of our galactic community for barely 50 years. A species with small fleets and limited resources." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Today, not only have my people survived, But we are stronger than ever. Our worlds are rebuilding. Our children are safe. Our future is secure. From the human delegation. Ambassador Jin watched with quiet pride as his friend addressed the galaxy's most powerful leaders. But something else has changed, Kethera continued, her tone becoming more serious. The balance of power in our galaxy has shifted in ways none of us expected. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Representatives from the Altari Empire shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Zenthi delegation whispered among themselves nervously. Humanity has shown us that size and age do not determine strength, Kethera declared. They have proven that sometimes the youngest voice in the room can carry the biggest impact. The hegemony learned this lesson the hard way. The Corvin ambassador leaned forward, speaking carefully. Ambassador Kachera, while we all celebrate your people's survival, many of us are concerned about humanity's methods, their willingness to use such extreme tactics. Cathara's patterns flared brighter. The hegemony chose to use extermination as their weapon. Humanity simply responded in kind, but with precision rather than brutality. They saved my people while showing restraint toward their enemies. She looked directly at the assembled delegates. The galaxy now enjoys peace, not through treaties or negotiations, but through a simple truth. Those who would harm the innocent now know there are consequences. The new galactic order was clear. Humanity had established peace through superior firepower, the human way.